Well, good morning, YouTube America. Welcome to my mobile boat, this wonderful Ford Focus, and my couple sleeping bags and big fuzzy pillow, and the backdrop of this quick trip here and next to the interstate, in the wonderful city of Des Moines, where I started to notice that I'm not the only homeless person residing here. There's a couple over here in a white SUV pulling a camper that because it's a fold down, they don't open it here obviously, but I've noticed them here night after night for the past week or so, maybe 2 weeks. There's a fellow behind me in the pickup with the topper. Uh, he's been sleeping here for the last few nights. I don't know what to make about that. I know that currently I'm the only fellow that's legally registered here because I have no choice. Can't reside where my loved ones are. Can't stay with my mother because the legality of the 2,000-foot law, the residency law of this state, is absurd and asinine. Uh, it is what it is, but it's interesting. I've started to notice, that this goes on more than what we take for what we think. Uh, I don't know if I should be distressed by that or comforted that I'm not the only one that's out here. I don't know their circumstances, and of course, I'm not going to pry because it's not my business. Who am I to judge or make that kind of decision? There's something to be said about this gypsy lifestyle too. I mean, to be truthful, if I had the funds and the resources to buy a nice RV, this, and I could find a way to stay internet, which actually I can here because they have free Wi-Fi. It's just it's kind of dodgy out here in the back. You want to pull up front and park in front of the Burger King. It comes in clear. It's free. You take your chances with the security, of course. And run into a few issues with that a couple times because I made a mistake of trying to download something that you know had a piggyback on it or two, and the system didn't catch it. That's always distressing. But fortunately, my software here was pretty solid. It's got to be replaced soon, no, because it's one of the trial things that came with the laptop. Uh, I don't know how many months I'm going to have to be sitting out here, and I welcome you to ride along with me. Of course, most of I've got a few viewers. Nobody's subscribed to my. No, that's not true. I had one person subscribed. God bless you. Uh, I just think ride along with me because this is Iowa. The weather's going to turn. It's going to get cold. It's going to get nasty. Uh, my goal still is to try to get a van, at least a van before the end of the year. That's going to be a challenge. While I'm pulling down some decent money on this first couple of checks, child support's coming, back child support, and I owe about $62,000 of back child support, which I'm not a lawyer, and I don't have the resources at the moment to hire a lawyer. I question legality, though. When I went to prison in 2003, I owed back child support about say $20,000, $22,000, and it sounds like, oh, you deadbeat son of a bit. No, I wasn't no deadbeat. I was lazy. There's a big difference. Well, you can make the argument there's no difference, but I'm sorry, there is a big difference. I did not pay child support to my ex-wife or the mother of my younger son. They received money from the DHS, and I paid child support to the Department of Human Services for the state of Iowa. So it wasn't like I wasn't paying money to my kid. The kid was getting the money, and the mother was spending it on drugs and gambling and other things at the time. And nobody wants to hear about that part because, I'm the deadbeat bastard, among other things. Well, that's not true. Whenever I had a job, they got their money. I didn't have to pay because in Iowa, they take it from you. It's all great, right? That's what I'm saying. So at some point here in the near future, probably this next check or the one after, the DHS is going to get off their butt and say, oh, hey, this guy's got a job again. Take some money from him. And I'm fine with that because I owe it. What I'm what I have a problem with, though, to the DHS out there and to the Joe Q public and Jane Q public, I ask you, how is it okay that after a man was incarcerated, the DHS continued to demand the same amount of money that he was paying when he had a job. I had to pay about $80 a week at the time. That's when people say, "Well, $80 a week. Well, that's not a lot of money." Well, I said at the time. At the time, a $12 an hour job was considered a very decent job for a blue collar, general labor type person. And I was making just short of that. So I was paying about $360 a month, almost a paycheck every month. About 30% of my gross income for the month went to child support and back child support that I had accrued. I had about $22,000 at that point. So when I went to prison, like I said, uh, the state provides you with an allowance. You know, they encourage you to get a job while you're in prison, and the best you can pay, hope for in a prison job is 56 cents an hour, unless you're working outside the walls, and maybe you can get upwards of $1 in a few, very few specific prison controlled settings. Now, there's also a handful of what they call uh, IPI jobs or contracted public jobs where they're obligated to pay you the going minimum wage or the going equivalent wage. So a welder working for H&H Trailer at Corinda can make upwards of $12, $13 an hour. They don't get that. They don't get that, by the way. They get 20% of that, which is still a pretty nice chunk of change when you're a guy in prison. You got your room. They call it three hots and a cot. As I point out, it's not three hots; it's two hots and a cold, and a really lame cot. But it is provided for you. You do have a head over your roof over your head, and you're getting fed and clothed to some degree. Uh, what they don't provide you is stuff like hygiene. That ain't free. You want soap, you want toothpaste, you got to pay for it. You want a snack, you want a treat, you want a pop once in a while, you got to pay for all that. State ain't giving you none of that stuff. Excuse me. And so while I was incarcerated, I was making at best 35 to 40 cents an hour average for the years I was down. And that would bring me in about $30, $40 a month. And yet the Department of Human Services, in their ultimate wisdom, decided I was just to keep right on paying $360 a month. So, of the $62,000 that I'm in arrears for back child support, about 22,000 of it came with me when I set into prison. 13 and a half years later, that's almost three times what I owed in the beginning. And mostly, like I said, I don't understand how that's legal. Some of y'all will say, well, you deserve it and you're a piece of whatever and we don't care. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I get that. Okay. All right. That's just the way it goes. But in the truth, there's such a thing as just and fairness, although I think our country has done a damn good job of forgetting that sort of thing. They just don't give a damn about that sort of stuff until it happens to them. And I'm telling you, people, it can happen to you fast and easy, real easy. It's scary. It's scary how fast and easy it is that you can become a felon. And don't kid yourself. Don't lie to yourself that you can't, because everybody out there has done something foolish at least once. And even if it's only driving recklessly on the highway, you lose control of your car and you rear end somebody and somebody dies, you're a felon. You're going to find that not all accidents are accidents in the eyes of the law. Not unless you got some lawyers and some means to defend yourself, because you're not innocent. There's no such thing as innocent until proven guilty. It's about the deal. Sorry, but it's the truth. You're gonna sit there and say, well, I'm a sour ass because I've been to prison. Well, yes, I'm a sour ass. I'm honest about it too. But I've watched thousands of people, and out of those thousands, hundreds of them came in on stuff that was totally outrageous and totally trumped up or spun up. That's the key word here. Yeah, they broke the law. There's no getting around that. An actual, true, innocent person, there's very few, but you might count them on the one hand or two in the Department of Corrections of the 8 or 9,000 people that are incarcerated in the state of Iowa. Maybe 5 or 10 of them are actually innocent of the charges they were, that they were arraigned on. But let's say 20% of people that are in prison should not have gotten the sentence that they got. They got lumped into something where the state says, well, if you fall into a certain category, this is the minimum amount of time we mandate for that kind of thing. And we don't have the discretion, the judges do not have the discretion anymore to mitigate that sentence. And anyway, like I said, they continued to charge me $360 a month, even though I was only taking home about 30 or 40, grossing about $50 a month, maybe 80. There was a couple years there at Fort Dodge where I was making $100 and I'd make 40 return after everything was taken out. And they took child support. They took 50% of my check, 50%. And, I filed paperwork the first year I was in to get them quashed. Now that's a term, it's a legalese term that means to suppress and so I have, and this is something I don't understand, and you'd have to be one of these legalese guys, one of these DHS double-tongued devils to be able to understand this, how this works. But I have four counts, accounts, or four bills, if you will, for back child support. One was for my oldest son, and then the other three come from my younger son. And fortunately, I didn't have to pay for my daughter because my wife and my parents took care of her, and there was no child support involved there. There was no DHS involved, no food, no welfare. The the My younger son, my understanding is he changed for a ghost term. He changed owners 3 times. He was in the custody of 3 different people over his lifetime, and each time you legally change custody, the DHS stops the previous account, begins a new account. So not that that just means I had to pay. They divide up that 364 ways, and or however that pans out, and I'm paying for his 3 separate accounts. Anyway, I got one of those quashed, and that reduced it to $5. The other 3 stayed at $119 a week. $119 a week. And the DHS said, well, we already adjusted you once a year prior, and we're not obligated to do it again for a number of years, and we're not going to. Now, well, I understand that's part of the bureaucracy, and that's how the rules were set up. I still have to question, the how that's legal or just or, right. Is that right to do that? Ignore the fact I went to prison. Ignore the fact by the eyes of the state, I'm a monster, which is a load of BS, or the eyes of the public. The fact of the matter is, we're supposed to be treated equally and fair in all situations. Of course, that doesn't work out that way, and I'm a realist. I'm old enough to know better. 50 years old, I know better. I've had to learn that the hard way. But so probably 2/3 of my back child support shouldn't be there, and the DHS intentionally shafted me. And somebody up there was laughing in the back of their, behind their cubicle. Or they, that's how I view it in my head. I think they just rubber stamped it and move on to the next poor bastard. I know that it just seems illegal. So they're going to take a big chunk of my check, and we'll be back to where I can work my butt off and still not have enough money to pay rent by myself. It's harsh. Somebody will say, well, you're going to have to work 2 jobs. I said, you ever work 2 jobs? Well, here's something for you folks that work the 2-job guy or gal. They take your money from that too. So you work 2 jobs, they take twice as much money from you. So you're still back to where you were, right? Except now you're exhausted and you have no life whatsoever, and you might as well be living in a car, because why pay for all this stuff if you can't enjoy it? I ask that of truck drivers occasionally. These guys are gone 2-3 weeks at a time. They come home for 2 days, maybe day and a half, and then they're off on the road again. They got a family, got kids. They hardly ever see them. I was in the joint with a lot of truck drivers. They have a high ratio of well, I don't know if I want to get into that. I might get a lot of hate mail. Already, people get mad. But according to the, Sean Burchett, one of the sex offender treatment counselors at Mount Pleasant, former counselors, because Mount Pleasant lost that, and now it's at Newton because they mishandled the program for the past decade. And that's one of the reasons I had to discharge, because they screwed around on purpose. They decided how to they're going to keep people as long as they could, regardless of the legality of how things are supposed to work. Eventually caught up and backfired. Now they'll argue that's not why they lost. They moved the program, and that's also typical bureaucracy lying through their teeth. The people behind the scenes, the bureaucrats, which are not politicians, mind you. Bureaucrats can be political, but they're not politicians. They do not get elected. They run things. They're the ones who really run the country and the state and the county and all the institutions they're in, not these guys that we elect. Anyhow, the fact of the matter is that they decided to hang on to me, and that just made sure I ended up owing a buttload of money. And I'm in a situation that I'm in now, in part. Yeah, I created part of it, but they also exasperated it and made it worse. Uh, Nobody gives a damn except my wife and my mother and a few other people. Sometimes, what do you do? You know, how do I pay all that back? Well, eventually they'll get it. I'll have to work till I'm 70 years old. The current company I work for, the hours are so erratic and they're so all over the place. There's no way I could work a second job. My only benefit here is that I can possibly work some overtime, but that's hit or miss. Scheduled to work 2 nights ago and they called it off, or something got shifted around. And I showed up for work and nobody was there. And I thought, gee, the whole evening's wasted. And because I didn't get the call, or I didn't notice the call or whatever earlier that day. And then the last couple nights, well, we get in there at 7 in the evening, and here we are rolling back to the shop at 6 and 5 o'clock in the morning. We're pulling in a few hours, but then then they got this convoluted schedule. Saturday evening, I'm working a job. I'm probably done at 5 or 6 in the morning, and then they want me back at the shop Sunday morning at 7 a.m. and I'm going to run until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they have another job scheduled at 7 o'clock that evening. So I'm not going to get any sleep at all Saturday and through Sunday anyway. Just something to keep in mind that I'm going to be out there driving a 26,000 ton truck around the city of Des Moines with no sleep. Thanks a lot, they're job people, but it'll be a lot of hours. God knows I need them. Oh. Well, we're running into that 20-minute window that nobody really wants to hear me ramble on about. Uh, like I said, I just thought, this is one of those ways of venting. Nobody ever pays attention to this stuff. Well, that's fine. Uh, I'm still learning how this YouTube thing works. Nothing else. I'm going to have a bucket load of these videos out there, because you know what? It makes me feel better. Uh, I need to tell people about what's going on and how it's affecting some people. And there are a few people that this affects: myself, my wife, my mother did indirectly, a few people out there who are in the same boat that maybe don't have the means or don't want to talk about it. There's a lot of that going on. Too many guys coming out of the prison system. They just want to put their head back in the sand, forget all that happened, and go forward. And I get that, and I want to do that to some degree too. But at the same time, I can't forget some of the injustice that the justice system inflicted. The problem is the system's broken, people. We've allowed it to get broke. It's like an old car that we didn't change the oil regularly enough, and now it's knocking around in there. The engine's going to quit on us. It's going to fire. Something's going to go bad. And what do? We just keep putting temporary fixes on the problem. There's a few good people in the system that are working hard for change. God bless Warden McKinney. I think he's a godsend for the DOC, and I hope that he makes it to the top levels, because he will really shake things up. I've watched him in action, and it's something to see. There's a lot of that going. I wish there was more of that going on. I look at the current political debate between Hillary Clinton and Trump, and have mixed opinions on it. I don't like Trump as a person. I don't like his attitude, this I'm wealthy and I can do whatever I want attitude. But I think as a businessman and as not a member of the establishment, he will shake things up and maybe because of that make the establishment tighten up a little bit or clean up its act a hair. Hillary, on the other hand, has a lot of proposed programs and stuff that she's wanting to do. But the reality of it is most presidents discover, or they know before they get there, that lion's share with their promises are never going to see the light of day, because that's just how this stuff works. On the other hand, a big problem with Hillary, in my opinion, is first off, she lies, and you can't trust her. You can't trust somebody who's bold-faced lies and is not even very good at lying, and she's not convincing at it. You know what? No offense, I loved your husband. Bill was the bomb. I voted for him the second go around. One thing about him was he's good at lying and making people think he wasn't. Second, he really did give a damn about the people, and he was more uh, focused on screwing the people working in his office, so to speak, than the American public, which is a good thing for a president, as far as I'm concerned. That's what made JFK so damn good. Oh my God, how can you talk about JFK that way? Do your homework, people. It's there. It's there. He had an interesting life going on behind the scenes, and because of it, he was a good president. Anyway, Hillary's part of this establishment that's been flawed and broken for 20 years now, 2 decades. We have a Republican Party that's eating itself and at war with itself on numerous levels. Meanwhile, the Democrats basically they're just closet Republicans. If you look at your history, what the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have traditionally rotated around each other slowly over time, and they basically the same side, the same entity, but two different sides of the coin. So what you see at the front of the Republicans, the Democrats represent what you see in the back that the Republicans don't want you to see, and the Democrats vice versa. So we're all on this two-sided coin that just slowly revolves as it goes through the timeline here. And so the problem here again is we have a government and a bureaucracy that's out of control, and we have an elected head of this bureaucracy who is so upset. Who are so obsessed with thwarting the other elected people, the other party, so to speak, that they can't get nothing accomplished. They just can't seem to compromise anymore. And part of our republic system is based off of compromise. This is where people sit down and hack out some kind of agreement that says, okay, I don't get all of what I want, you don't get all of what you want, but at least we both get some of what we want, and the public benefits from this, and we don't have to resort to these childish questionable behaviors of shutting the government down every 6 days or 60 days or something like that. You know, I don't even want to talk about the irresponsible nature of this massive $1 trillion debt that we've accrued over the last decade. Good Lord. There was a point where, under old man Clinton, they were trying to pay that thing down. Old man Bush was trying to pay that thing down. Democrat, Republican, both of them trying to pay things down. What the hell happened? Hey, what the hell happened? We doubled the damn debt. We're going on tripling the debt. Less than 10 years, 12 years. God damn. And, well, how long is it going to be before America is going to be parked next to me? I'm serious. I'm going to have the state of Wisconsin in a van on one side, and New Mexico over here on the other side of me, because the Chinese have kicked us out of our apartments. Hello, wake up, America. Really, wake up. Gotta do something different.